It's about knowledge. It's about how we decide what is true. People don't tend to think about the ways in which they decide what is true. It just seems to come naturally to them because it comes from the water that we swim in. And we're just gradually, bit by bit, undermining the long history of going with evidence, of going with consistent liberal ethics. It's frightening.
A bald assertion is a claim made without any supporting evidence. Sophistry is the flawed reasoning used to attempt to legitimize an assertion which cannot be established by objective reason or evidence. When sophistry takes on the form of academic jargon, the term pseudo-science may be more appropriate. Idea laundering is the process of taking bald assertions and using pseudo-science sophistry and the academic systems of society to give false credibility to ideas which would not otherwise be considered legitimate.
If people don't understand that this is a form of corruption that's political in nature, that's trying to change how we validate ideas, Brett Weinstein called it idea laundering, which is a brilliant term.
This concept of idea laundering is worth drilling down on. It deals with how we know what is established as legitimate truth. In the modern era, academic institutions such as universities have traditionally employed empiricism and the scientific method, peer review, and institutional disconfirmation to validate hypotheses, overcome biases, and legitimate knowledge. The output of this process takes the form of publications in academic journals. However, not all journals are the same. There are different levels of rigor and prestige among journals, and those which are at the pinnacle are notoriously difficult to get published in, and the expectation is that the highest standards of scientific methodology and review create that barrier to entry. Lower-ranking journals may allow studies of less rigorous design to be accepted, and the peer review process may not be as scrutinizing. Furthermore, specialized journals in more esoteric subjects may not prioritize disconfirmation or falsifiability in their assessment, leading to journals with a low bar of entry which publish the academic equivalent of an ideological echo chamber.
If you really, really think about that, a bunch of people have some moral impulse, they get together, they have some idea that's some total freaking lunatic nut job idea. They write this up, they find someone else who's an academician, this person sets up a journal, they take these articles, they publish them, they get 7 of these in 7 years, they get tenure, which is a job for life. They then get together in communities with other people who have published in this, and let's make no mistake about it. These are purely ideological ideas coming from a fringe section of the far left.
Such journals are more vulnerable to allowing pseudoscience and sophistry to fill its pages, and this phenomenon is dangerous to our trust in the academic process. Still, these articles become part of the body of academic literature and are available for citation in the same indexes that the most rigorous journals are found in. In the academy, knowledge builds upon itself. Once such a flawed study is published, future publications may cite it in supporting its later claims, and this cycle continues in perpetuity, with a growing interconnected body of pseudo-scientific research that can spill over into societal assumptions and norms and make its way into public policy.
Maybe everybody doesn't know how money laundering works. But with money laundering, the idea, of course, is that you obtain money in some illegitimate fashion, you put it through some channels so that it comes back to you, and now you have a legitimate paper trail that makes it look clean, and now you can use it. So it's a way of making dirty money look legitimate.
Here we go. Launder. To clean? No. Wash. Here it is. To conceal the source of money as by channeling it through an intermediary. To conceal the source of money.
Doesn't really help us, Michael.
I can't believe what a bunch of nerds we are. We're looking up money laundering in a dictionary.
Yeah, well, you guys can both eat my ass, okay?
Idea laundering is this parallel concept our friend Brett Weinstein gave us to describe what we had uncovered. And idea laundering is where you start with something like opinion or prejudice, and you write down a scholarly-looking paper that looks very authoritative, and then you get it published as scholarship that the academy verifies. It gets used to set educational curricula and gets taught as truth, as fact. Once you take these ideas and prejudices and then you can push through, get them published as though they're scholarship, people will refer to those as though they are legitimate knowledge.
Let's suppose this process of creating a body of pseudo-scientific academic literature had actually taken root in our academic system. How would you discover it? How could you test to see if the peer review and publication system, which was supposed to vigorously interrogate any proposed submission to discover and reject work built on faulty premises, unaccounted for biases, flawed analysis, or shoddy study design? Well, one way would be to submit papers that were intentionally designed with the exact type of faulty premises, unaccounted for biases, flawed analysis, and shoddy study design that they are supposed to detect, and see if they can get seen for what they are and rejected. That was what James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, and Peter Boghossian set out to do in what has been called the Grievance Studies Hoax Project.
And so how we know that what we uncovered is a process of idea laundering is that we wrote our papers in pretty much the same way. We wrote 20 papers over the course of 10 months. We started with the conclusion we wanted. For example, that men should be trained like dogs to stop rape culture. We started with the conclusion, and we used the existing scholarship faithfully and accurately to build a nonsense argument to get to that conclusion. That's not how you do knowledge, right? You can't do it backwards. You don't start with what you want to be true, then write a bunch of bullcrap, and then send it off. So you would hope that the peer reviewers, the editors of these academic journals, the people who validate, yeah, this was good scholarship, it should be published, we should take this seriously, this is knowledge. And one of our reviewers did call one of our papers an important contribution to knowledge, as a matter of fact. So when you have this kind of a situation where you can pass that stuff off at the highest level, and it becomes something that people teach, and people can say, there's a study, and we're going to follow what that says. This is true. You have the situation where people don't question it. You have the highest level of rigor saying, this is the fact of the matter. But when you start from your conclusion, you could write anything. We thought that they would catch this, right? That they'd say, wait a minute, these papers don't make sense. They're about awful things. They're crazy. Sometimes the data that we made up for them are literally impossible. And instead, they didn't. And as Helen was just saying, there's a reason for that. It's not that they were asleep on the job. It's the peer review system was working as intended. The process was working as intended, but the people operating that system fully buy into the idea that if you say something bad enough about men, like that they should be trained like dogs, they think these are great ideas. So of course they validate them. They have become lost by having swum in this kind of academic inbreeding pond for maybe, 50, 60 years now.
Of course, after it's all said and done, the best review of the process of laundering comes from Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad.
You know you need to launder your money, right? Do you understand the basics of it? Placement, layering, integration. Now, you give me your money, okay? That's called placement.
In this case, the dirty money is an ideologically fueled claim, a bald assertion built on bias and prejudice.
This is the nail salon, right?
In this case, the nail salon is an ideologically captured journal that will publish most anything as long as it conforms to their favorite ideology.
I take your dirty money and I slip it into the salon's nice, clean cash flow. That's called layering.
Layering is when a pseudo-scientific, ideologically driven paper gets published in such an ideologically captured journal.
Final step, integration. The revenues from the salon go to the owner. That's you. Your filthy drug money has been transformed into nice, clean, taxable income brought to you by a savvy investment in a thriving business.
Integration is the incorporation of published pseudoscience into the wider realm of knowledge, future publications, curriculum, and the academic clout and tenure that comes with it.
So you want me to buy this place so I can pay taxes? I'm a criminal, yo.
So you can conclude nearly anything as long as it's hostile to the right things, privilege in particular. And so then these grievance studies fields, take them in. They do the peer review thing, obviously in a way that's very concerning from our work, and then they put them out, and now they have this respectability of knowledge when they still are just prejudice and opinion. Critical race theory is a mess, for example. It is an explicitly political situation in which whiteness has to be bad, and therefore it can't ever do anything right. And they take these ideas and launder them through the academic process. And these departments exist specifically to launder these ideas, to put them through the academic process and give them the appearance of being rigorous studies. So then activists can go out and say, oh, a study has shown. These ideas disseminate straight out of the university into culture. They're everywhere. People run into them all the time. Everybody's confused about issues of racism and sexism now because they seem to have been redefined, and this whole power structure is becoming the water we swim in. And this whole thing that everybody and everything is racist and sexist would never have been able to take off and get much traction if it weren't being made to look legitimate by a scholarly enterprise that's been pushing it for 5 decades.